I used to think I was a good person. I didn't lie, I didn't cheat, I didn't manipulate. I kept things calm, I avoided conflict. I thought of that made me mature. But one time after an argument with someone I loved, I went silent. For an entire week. No messages, no explanation, no effort to reconnect. I told myself I was giving space, but deep down I knew I was punishing her, without saying a word. And the worst part, I didn't even realize how much damage I was doing. I wasn't screaming, I wasn't name calling, I simply disappeared. But silence can be just as violent as words. That's when it hit me. I was being toxic, and I didn't even realize it. We usually think of toxic behaviors as something extreme: shouting, gaslighting, cheating, control. But the truth is, toxicity isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It hides behind politeness. It wears the mask of care. It shows up in the way we guilt trip someone for having boundaries. In the way we joke but actually shame. In the way we say I'm fine when we're not, just to punish someone in silence. And most dangerously toxic behaviors show up in the things we convince ourselves are harmless. It's just my personality. I didn't mean anything by it. They're just overreacting. But if someone constantly feels drained, confused, or small around you, it matters. Your intention might not be to hurt, but the impact is still real. According to the Violence and Victims Journal, nearly 50% of people have experienced psychological aggression in their relationships. And no, that's not just about romantic partners. It includes friends, parents, colleagues. It happens in families, at work, online. And yes, even in the way we treat ourselves. I've been on both sides. I've felt what it's like to be blamed for everything, to be manipulated so gently I thought it was love, to question my own memory after every conversation. But here's the harder truth. I've also been the one doing those things. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I was scared, insecure, unaware. I was carrying habits I never examined, repeating patterns I had seen growing up. And at the time I thought, this is just how relationships work. But pain disguised as love is not love. And fear disguised as control is still fear. What I've learned is this most toxic behavior isn't about being a bad person. It's about being a person who's been hurt and never had a chance to heal. But awareness changes everything. When you start to see it, you can start to shift it. You can stop it from repeating. And that's why this video matters. Because we're not just talking about what other people have done to us, we were talking about what we do too. The patterns we carry, the behaviors we normalize, the choices we can change. So in the next part, I want to walk you through 7 of the most common toxic behaviors. Behaviors I've experienced, behaviors I've done, and behaviors that might be quietly shaping your life without you even knowing. Let's look at them honestly. Not to shame ourselves, but to understand ourselves. Because that's where healing begins. Let's start with the first behavior: stonewalling. I used to think walking away from an argument was mature, that I was being calm and composed. But what I was really doing was abandoning the conversation, abandoning the person. I would shut down, say nothing, nothing, avoid eye contact, and just disappear emotionally. I thought silence was peace, but it was actually punishment. The other person was left feeling confused, hurt, and invisible. That's what stonewalling does. It says you're not worth responding to without ever speaking a word. The second behavior is isolating. In one relationship, I found myself pulling away from my friends more and more. Not because I wanted to, but because every time I tried to make plans, there was guilt. You're choosing them over me. Don't you care about us? And so I stayed. I canceled things. I made excuses. And before I realized it, I was disconnected from everyone except the person making me feel guilty. That's how emotional isolation often works. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens through slow, subtle pressure until you're alone and you don't know how it got that way. Third, a lack of self-awareness. This one was hard to admit. There were times I said things I thought were harmless, honest opinions, casual remarks, jokes. But people flinched. They got quiet. And I didn't understand why. I thought they were being sensitive. But the truth is, I wasn't aware of how my words landed. I didn't realize I was hurting people. I wasn't paying attention. And when you're unaware of yourself, you can't take accountability. You keep repeating the same things and wondering why people pull away. Fourth, boundary violations. I've had people read my messages without permission, show up unannounced, push me to talk when I wasn't ready. And I've done it too. I've crossed emotional boundaries thinking I was being caring or close, but love doesn't mean access to everything. Respecting boundaries is a form of love. Ignoring them is a form of control. And when you constantly ignore someone's limits, you're not showing love. You're showing a lack of respect. Fifth is gaslighting. And I saw this one play out in someone close to me. My friend James, she was in a relationship with someone named Tony. At first, everything seemed great. He was attentive, affectionate, understanding. But slowly things started shifting. Every time she brought up a concern, he'd say, "You're imagining things," or "You're just being dramatic." He made her feel like she couldn't trust her memory, her emotions, herself. Over time, James started doubting everything. She'd apologize constantly, second-guess herself, feel confused after every conversation. That's what gaslighting does. It separates you from your own intuition and makes you depend on someone else to define your reality. The sixth behavior is blaming. I used to do this a lot. If something went wrong, I had a long list of reasons why it wasn't my fault. The weather, the traffic, my childhood, the way someone else made me feel, anything but me. Blaming is a way we protect ourselves from guilt. But in doing that, we also push away growth. Because if it's never your fault, it's never your responsibility to change. And without responsibility, there is no healing. The seventh and final behavior, manipulation. This one is uncomfortable to talk about because it doesn't always look like manipulation. Sometimes it looks like love, like overgiving, like sacrificing. But underneath it's control. I've done this. I've used kindness to keep people close. Gifts, compliments, thoughtfulness, not always out of love, but out of fear. I was afraid they'd leave if I didn't do enough. Afraid I wasn't enough without performing for them. And I saw the same thing happen with Jame. Her ex, Tony, would shower her with attention whenever she started to pull away. He'd say things like, "I love you too much to lose you." He'd buy her flowers, cook her dinner, be incredibly sweet. But always right after she tried to set a boundary. It wasn't really love, it was strategy. A way to bring her back in. And it worked. For a while, Jame thought she was the one being difficult, that she was cold for needing space, that she was wrong for saying no. Until one day she asked herself, do I actually want this relationship or am I just afraid to leave? That question changed everything. Here's what I believe now. Toxic behaviors aren't always about cruelty. Sometimes they're about pain. Deep-buried pain that never got a name. Pain that never had space to speak. Pain that learned to protect itself through silence, through control, through guilt. I used to think being toxic meant you were a bad person, but now I see it differently. Toxicity is what happens when our pain becomes louder than our awareness, when fear leads instead of love, when control replaces vulnerability. And the people who act this way, they're not monsters. Sometimes they're the people we love the most, and sometimes they're us. The moment I realized that, everything started to shift. I stopped asking what's wrong with them or what's wrong with me and started asking where is this coming from? Because that question leads to healing. It leads to growth. It leads to change. Jame asked herself that question too, and it changed her life. She stopped waiting for permission to choose herself. She stopped apologizing for her boundaries. She stopped mistaking guilt for love. And when she did, the right people stayed. The wrong ones left, and she found peace not because her life was perfect, but because she was finally living in alignment with who she really was. I'm learning to do the same. Slowly, imperfectly, but intentionally. I still mess up. I still get triggered. I still catch myself slipping into old patterns. But now I catch it sooner. I apologize faster. I reconnect deeper. And that to me is what real healing looks like. Not perfection, but presence. Not control, but connection. Not shame, but choice. So if you've seen yourself in any of these behaviors, I want you to know this. You're not broken. You're becoming aware. And awareness is the beginning of everything. You don't have to carry the weight of who you were. You just have to choose who you want to be now. Start there. Start small. Start honest. And if this message spoke to something inside you, share it. Leave a comment. Let someone else know they're not alone in their healing. And if you're ready for more conversations like this, subscribe to High Day Psych. We're not here to judge. We're here to grow together.